Right. All right. We ready for?
Are we live now?
We are live. I've got to do the intro. Can I do the intro?
Yeah, you could do the intro.
Right, folks. Hey, welcome to another episode of On the Table. I'm MT Omoniyi, and this podcast is all about bringing different type of Christians together each week to discuss matters that are on the table. The aim of the podcast is to help us not simply think Christian things, but consider how we turn those Christian things into action. So we aim through this podcast to answer questions on how Christians can take theological truths that they profess and apply them in everyday life. So before we get into what's on the table, let's consider the folks who are at the table. You guys like that?
I like that.
Yes, and
You're laughing
you're meant to laugh away from the mic.
I apologize.
At the table today is me, of course, MT Omoniyi, and also there's
Elijah. I'm a student at the University of Manchester. And yeah, that's all you need to know about me.
Oh, man of mystery.
a bit ominous there, isn't it?
My name is Raphael, and I am living life.
You're a regular now, Raphael. This is like your third podcast, isn't
This
it?
is my second one.
Sorry.
Oh.
I don't know if that constitutes as regular, but yeah, man, I'm here.
Hi, my name is Shumi. I'm a third year undergraduate at the University of Manchester studying law.
Superb.
Can I just say I hate when Shumi speaks after me because his voice is so deep, so it makes me sound a lot less manly.
There's a deep issue there we need to solve, but I don't think we can do it. We don't have the time, I don't think.
No, it's only 30 minutes.
I hate when Mike and Elijah are together.
Let's
bullies the two of you.
Not true.
Yeah.
Well, listen. Before we get into the topic, which is obviously very interesting today, I imagine some of the people listening just can't wait for us to get into it. There is a game we normally play, and there's a leaderboard as well. And just explain for people who maybe it's your first time listening, every single episode, the group of 4 people who are doing the episode have to play this game. It's called Taboo, and there's a leaderboard. So we need to try and get as many taboo words, I guess, or we need to try and get as many describing words right, whatever you call them, in 1 minute. But you can't use the words on the document, as it were, because then it will be taboo. Right.
So what's the highest score then?
Well, we don't know when this episode's coming out, but so far 3. Someone got 3, which is pretty cool. But I think we could do more.
My group got
100%.
Yeah. So who wants to do the describing?
Let me do it then.
All right. So Elijah, you're gonna describe.
Let me steer this
We
shit.
need to put a 1 minute on the clock, don't we?
I don't have my phone. It was taken
Gosh,
from me.
we normally have someone here who does it, but we don't. So you, yeah. Sorry about this, folks.
Do you want me to hold time for you?
Yes, that'd be swell.
Hey Google. So this is when you need Google, right? Hey Google.
Where's your Google Nest?
It's in my room.
Ah.
All right. Ready? 3,
Whoa.
2,
Whoa.
1,
Whoa.
go.
If you don't know it, move on. If you don't know it, move on.
What? So can I only use these
You
ones
could
here?
do any of them.
What? Just these ones here?
Any of them. There's no time, Elijah.
Time is great.
Oh my.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, we've lost.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we've lost.
This is somebody's CEO.
Can you try?
It's a bottle drop.
So I can't use any of the words underneath.
Oh
it either.
Oh my
goodness
gosh.
me.
Are you being serious
I'm
right
being
now?
dead serious.
Were you paid by the other team to come here and sabotage us?
So I can't use any of the words. I can't do
Elijah,
this.
no,
I can't do
Elijah,
this.
come on, have a go.
Mike,
can
can we
try.
start again? Can we start again? I don't think you knew the rules.
Unfortunately, you can't. You got 10 seconds.
Morning Star.
Jesus?
Lucifer.
Yes. Okay. Cool.
How is Morningstar Lucifer?
That's what his name
That's
is.
his full name.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking of the song, My Morning Star.
Somebody who writes on. I can't even use that word. Oh my goodness.
Right, so time's up,
Yeah.
and we got 1.
You are a bum.
Look. Hold on.
Sorry.
Sorry
on.
for your ears, folks.
Sorry.
If you look at the words, you'll forgive me. Okay.
Right.
I never knew those. I never knew that there are words that you can't use. I just thought.
So
it
some
was
of the
free game.
words was Lucifer, throne, bread.
Look at the words that you can't use to describe
So
it.
for
though.
bread, you can't say bake, eat, wine, communion, or sandwich.
Wheat. Okay. So
Jesus'
manna.
body.
Manna. Oh,
Yeah, Jesus' body.
right. Okay.
Right,
Throne.
well-
You couldn't use chair, I'm assuming.
This is not...
Or sit.
No, you can use chair.
Royal.
Sit. What a chair?
Royal
what
chair. King's chair.
Can you use the word royal?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, maybe I was just bad at the game.
Yeah, I think that was really bad.
Yeah, really bad.
Yeah, we'll just move straight on. That was actually probably the worst.
I think.
All right. Anyways, well, so today, today we're talking about a really pressing issue about kind of honor as it pertains to folks who are in positions of leadership or people we look up to. Of course, the episode's called, should Christians have, or how we relate to this daddy term, to set the scene on Twitter, on social media. There's always been a discourse about calling, religious leaders in your life daddy or dad, and terms like that. Now, the context is obviously people do it typically, they say it's because of culture, that in some people's culture, it's okay to call someone who's in the position of leadership over you, your daddy or your dad, and whereas in other cultures, they might call the pastor, Dan or Jacob or something like that. Let's just jump in there and just work out, what do you think about that? Have you called people daddy in the past? Do you call your pastors daddy? What's your church culture like, and what do you guys do?
So I go to a redeemed church. So as you can imagine,
What's a redeemed church?
So Redeemed Christian Church of God.
In Christ.
In Christ. What is that? Its full name?
Yeah.
Oh, I actually didn't know that.
RCCG.
It's just RCCG.
No, the C is not there. It's just RCCG, but it's Redeemed Christian Church of God. Carry on.
Right. Cool. So I go to Redeemed Church. Majority Yoruba. Majority. Yeah. And we call our pastor, or some people do, call them dad or daddy or father in the Lord or whatever reverend title that they've got for him. So, I mean, and I think that's the case for most RCCG churches, because RCCG is a church that started in Nigeria. So I just think that in a number of those churches or branches, that's what we call our pastors.
And do you think there's anything wrong with it? Because I think we probably should start there. Is there actually anything wrong with calling? Because on Twitter or on social media, what you were seeing were people saying, "I would never call my pastor daddy," and that's a really weird thing to call them, as it were. Yeah. And actually, that's not honor. It's venturing into a kind of unhealthy relationship where, I've seen some people on their pastor's birthday, like they had like a jumper saying, "My pastor's my hero," or my daddy and stuff like that. And you kind of go, well, is that okay, or is that a step too far?
I don't think the term in itself is a problem. And I don't have a problem with somebody calling somebody that, or just, choosing not to. Whether or not that relationship becomes toxic or weird, that's dependent on the relationship. I don't think that stems from the name only, because as you do know, in our culture, we use the terms uncle, auntie, just to describe anybody who's older than you, or anybody who's got term of respect. Term of respect. I mean, right now I don't do it anymore, simply because I don't call my own daddy. I don't call him father. So
what do you call him? His name?
Dad.
Okay, well, come on. Are you gonna say something bad? So, what would you call him? His first name?
What, my dad? Mm-hmm. No, that bants. No, it won't fly like that. No.
So what about your pastor? And please, everyone else, something as well. Like, what would you call your pastor?
I just call him pastor or pastor.
Like, we were having this conversation yesterday. In my church, we have the main church, and we've over like the last 4 years, we've got a youth church. So the pastor of our youth church, who's my immediate pastor, I call him Pastor Yemi. But the pastors of the senior church, and like your church, it also comes from Nigerian culture. So we do call our senior pastors mommy and daddy. But what I found is that there's two reasons for it.
Yeah.
So there's one reason, like you said, the culture where anyone older than you, you call mommy or daddy as a term of respect. So I know there's a lot of people that call our pastors mommy and daddy because they are a lot older than us, and it's as a term of respect. But then there are some people who do it because they see it as, you are my spiritual mother, or my spiritual father, or my mother in the Lord, my father in the Lord. So it's me reverencing. What's the English?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, reverencing that. Like, that's why we call you mommy and daddy. So me too. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And like Elijah said, it's about how you now treat that relationship. If you let that if you let that relationship now become weird, I don't believe you can say it's because, I was calling him daddy and somehow, some way the relationship got weird. No, the relationship got weird because you made it weird. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Yeah, I myself just pastor really, and there's only maybe 10% that would refer to, it's mainly even the bishop really that will refer to maybe as daddy, but that's just a small minority. But again, I think it's that cultural aspect to it, and that's how they almost show the respect. But as these guys have said, I think it's almost the sentiment behind it and then the further treatment that comes with it, rather than in the term itself.
But then also, like, even when you look at the Catholic Church, they call their priests Father John, Father Steve. Like, so
That's nearly a title though, Father John, Father Steve. We we don't attach the surname, most of the time. It's just a daddy or mummy. We don't say
But
daddy this.
don't you think so?
That.
To press into it, obviously, this whole podcast isn't going to be about just daddy and stuff like that. I found it quite odd, personally. I've always found it a bit weird. And, someone did mention once, is it a masculinity thing, calling another man daddy? Like, is that the masculine? Because even my dad, I don't call him daddy. I call him dad for the most part. He's saved on my phone as father.
Same actually. My father actually saved as father.
But I call him dad. And you guys can let me know what you think, but I never saw it as a masculinity issue. I think it's just, it is a cultural thing.
Yeah.
Based on how I grew up and where I've grown up, I can call you daddy and disrespect you from morning till night and call you, John, but confer upon you just ridiculous respect. So I'm not sure it's just a word. However, it does go a bit deeper though than just the words we call them, because in Hebrews 13:17, we're told to obey and submit to our religious leaders because they're watching, they're keeping watch over our souls. They will give an account, and we're told to help to make their life easier, so to speak. So the reason why the daddy thing isn't just a term thing is because typically, I think, from what I've seen and from what I've observed and from people I've spoken to, it goes beyond just what you call them. It also typically, and if you call your pastor daddy and this doesn't apply to you, that's okay. Like, this is not me speaking about everyone, but there is a sense in which some pastors, number one, want to be called daddy, or like want you to kind of respect them, and it creates this culture where they're kind of above reproach. They're like your dad typically, doesn't have to explain himself to you most times. He just says, do this. And because he's your dad, you have to do what he says. Like, you go, my dad said it. We all have images in our head playing football, and you just have to leave. And people are like, what happened? You don't. You just go, my dad said I have to leave, right? And I think there is a sense in which, or do you think there's a sense in which some pastors want that similar kind of control and dominance over people's lives, and just calling them daddy and seeing them in that way, rather than spiritual leaders and guides who are there to advise, to admonish, whatever, seeing them as dad is another level, because now they're like they're like the head of your family, so to speak. Do you think that gives them a role or a power, quote unquote, that they shouldn't have? And does it create that culture then where literally, my dad said this, I have to do it, I can't see this person anymore, my dad said it? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
100%. I agree, because I feel like if I stepped into a church and as I got there, the pastor is saying, if you're joining this church, you have to call me daddy, I'm going to look a bit like, don't think I want to be here. Because again, I think it's legit that like what you're saying is, I'm in charge. I essentially don't have to explain myself to you. I'm above everything. Like, whatever happens here is because I want it to happen. And as a pastor, that I don't think that should be how you lead, like to a place where you can't accept correction. You don't have to explain yourself. Like, I feel like, I know I can only speak from my experience with my pastors and pastors I've been under, and I know a lot of my pastors, if they do something, they don't see any problem with explaining why they're doing this. If they're changing something that we do in churches, this is why I'm changing it. This is why I'm doing it. And I think that's right. Like, that accountability to say, I am the shepherd, but that doesn't mean I'm now going to keep the sheep out of the loop of what's happening. Like, because if I'm not mistaken, it's kind of like, not that the pastors is the bridge between us and Jesus. No, that's not it. But there are covering, if that makes sense. Like, I want to use the right word. I don't want to be lazy and use like the wrong terms. But like, in a way,
they're responsible for you. Like, Hebrews 13:17 literally talks about them keeping watch over yourselves.
Yeah, but like in that responsibility, they still communicate that what's happening between them and God. Like, I know like my pastor will say, "Oh, I'm praying for you guys," but it's not a thing where he's having conversations with God about us and we're just there. Like the conversation, the things that God is revealing, the things about us that God is revealing to them, they'll now come and share with us, things like that. Like that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like there's communication in that relationship. I don't know.
No.
When you speak and no one responds, it's kind of like, am I chatting wax or?
No, I understand you, bro.
Yeah, no. But I think also with that, I think in today's culture, unfortunately, the word daddy or the term daddy has been very over-sexualized. So I think that's why a lot of people also have a problem with it because, you know, in the American culture, it's daddy. They're like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of negative connotations with the word daddy. So to now bring that to church and you're now saying, hello, daddy, it's like, a lot of people are like, yeah, I'm not with that.
I made a joke once on Twitter that if my wife came back from church and I said, you know, where were you? And she was like, oh, I was with daddy. She was leaving the house that day. I do not feel comfortable with that at all. Irrespective of like culture, that's just, for me, that's a red line. You do not call another man your daddy. That's just not right. Sorry for images in people's heads, but I just cannot.
But see, I think it's leaving because like I don't know any young pastor that is referred to as daddy. Like all the pastors I know that are referred to as daddy.
I do. There are certain movements where that's normal, and that's what I'm trying to say. It's like, again, it's just beyond the word because we can have a superficial chat about the word, but it's far more about that that what does honor look like? Because I know some churches to shock you. I know some churches where you can't travel unless the pastor approves it.
That's ridiculous.
As in, you have to message the pastor to be like, I want to travel, and you be like, let me pray about it, let me see what God is saying, and then come back and tell you that, okay, cool, like you're good to go or you're not good to go. But the thing is, that's the kind of power your dad has, right? Like that, there's times where like, well, not everyone's dad, but you know, back in the days, I couldn't travel if my mum didn't allow it. Like if my mum said,
no,
do you know what I mean?
You can't say anything. You're not
so is that something your pastor should be? Should he be in that part of your life where he's monitoring whether you're going here, whether you're going?
I think it's a difference in. Okay, yeah, sorry. Let me let other.
No, it's just no. I mean, that's just my answer. There isn't any sort of like you know, elaborate or like, you know, smart explanation or reason why. It's just no. If I want to go somewhere, and when you say traveling, do you mean like on holiday or just do you mean like to a different part of the UK?
Sometimes, you know? Like the example I'm giving, it was to a different country.
A different country. I mean, yeah, still no. I mean, to say, no. I mean, I can't imagine mine stopping me. I could say something to him, as in, you know, look, I'm traveling. Can you pray that, you know, I go safely and arrive safely? But I'm going.
There's now a revelation.
If you now reveal that something bad's gonna happen to me,
that's a different story.
Then I'm a bit late. Then, you know, because I've already got
the flight leaves next week. I can't unbook it.
I think there's a difference between saying, "Oh, pastor, I'm going to this country. Pray for me," and as they pray, Raphael waits. I've heard this. There's a difference. But saying I have to ask you before I'm allowed to leave.
That's great. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, not my church.
I don't understand why he's dictating your moves. Where you go, what you're doing.
Sounds like a cult to me.
It sounds like a cultish tendency. Yeah.
Let's not talk about that here, though.
Well, another episode.
Yeah, no, go on, please.
I have a question. And what about? Because I've heard stories of people where maybe the pastor will say, "Okay, I'm applying." You told the pastor, "I'm applying for this job," and he says, "Don't go for this job. Don't get this job. Don't do this job." That sort of thing. And for me, if I'm now analyzing the situation and I'm seeing bills need to be paid, children need to be fed, and you told me, "Don't go for this job," what are we doing?
But see, that's where communication is. If it's a thing where you're telling your pastor you're gonna apply for a job and they've gone to prayer, and God has revealed it to something, then tell me that, oh, God has revealed that you shouldn't go for this job. But if you're just saying, no, don't go for this job, sorry.
But I think that even God's revealed it to you. I mean, I would like some form of explanation.
Yeah,
and that's just personally. Because I've heard worse. I've heard worse stories of people, you know, like getting to certain, you know, elite unis, and the pastor says no because God said. I was like, okay, so why? Because you know,
same God that helped me pass the exam.
Exactly.
Well, as hard as it is for a black person to enter Oxford, God has helped me get there. You're now telling me it's not God.
It's not God.
Yeah, I mean, when people say God has said, I think you need a bit more.
Yeah,
like you
way
like
more.
Open up the Bible, like help tease it out. Like this kind of what I'm scared of with the term, and I think what the term sometimes is a kind of dog whistle for, is this religious life of like kind of Moses like stuff where pastors go up to a mountain, spend time with God, then come down and go, this is what's next. And it's like, that's great. However, we in the New Testament or in the Second Testament, we're not to simply sit down and wait for our religious leaders to come to us with fresh manna from heaven. It actually drops from the sky. As in, God's interested in speaking to us directly.
Yeah.
Not to say that, that means a pastor's role is totally defunct. Of course it isn't. I'm a massive believer in church and structure. However, conferring to men that responsibility to basically be your father, such that, because it's, 1 Timothy 5:17 talks about, you guys can let me know what you think. It says, elders who rule well will be considered with a double honor, right? And the ones who labor, and what I've seen is some pastors using that. Do you know how that work over you? I'm laboring over you. I'm praying for you. I'm preaching every time. I used to work in the financial industry. I've left it to come here. So all of that plays into this notion of, wow, like they care about me. And so because they care about me, they ought to have this, dare I say it, daddy position in my life.
And my best interest at heart.
Yeah.
But when it comes to honor, like it'd be wrong or foolish of us to believe that to honor your pastor means to be saying things like that. Like, I think saying Pastor John, that's honor. Because, for example, this is what we were talking about yesterday with George, for example. Like, when you go to the hospital, you say Dr. Stephen. You don't just say Stephen. But in that, you're honoring him. You're honoring the work he's done.
The office.
Do you know what I'm saying? His office. And the same thing you do with pastors in church. By saying Pastor John or Pastor Steve, you are honoring the office that they've been called to. Or if it's a Bishop James, you're honoring the office they've been called to. That's honor.
Something that Mike mentioned at the start is something I've had a conversation with I think it was with my mum and my younger brother when it comes to culture. So we'll talk about prostrating when you greet somebody. And as Mike said, you could prostrate and hate somebody in your mind. It doesn't mean anything. So when it comes to honoring,
I can relate to that.
Same. So when it comes to honoring, I don't really care too tough about the words. It could be like a form of respect in the moment, fine. But I think your actions should actually show whether or not you honor this person or you honor the church as a whole. Because again, calling one person a title means you're honoring them. Okay, cool. But how about everybody else?
So then, the churches where like they refer to their pastors by their first names. Hi James, it's your turn to come and preach. Like you don't see anything wrong.
I don't see anything wrong with that. That's their culture. I mean, again, I think a lot of these titles, a lot of it is stemmed into into culture. So if you go to what's the name of these? I don't want to say the color, but if you go to church like the Ramp, and they say Joe, I can't say there's anything wrong with that.
See, my question is there anywhere in the Bible where we're given an example of how they reference their leaders? Like, how did they say Moses? Did they say Uncle Moses?
No. So,
Moses.
Well, I guess in Jewish tradition, you had rabbis, you had people who had different positions, and like you've said so far, they might be called, just similar to doctor something. You might be called great rabbi or whatever. But I think probably important to, I hate to sound like that, but we have to, what is honor in the first place, right? And we know that just a quick definition is it's just high respect, isn't it? It's just paying high respect to somebody or conferring onto them like a high degree of respect. One thing I will say though, which might be a bit kind of undoing some stuff I said already, is I do believe though that in today's culture, we have a massive honor issue. As in young people don't confer high respect to people who've labored over them, or generally people who've done the work and so deserve like respect. Everyone's voice is the same. And I was studying this in the first few months of my PhD before I paused it. Twitter and social media for the most part is this massive leveler that irrespective of whether you have a PhD in something or whether you're literally just having a go, everyone gets 140 characters.
Yeah.
And what that does is it forces everybody to be on the same kind of peg, so to speak. And in fact, on Twitter, you might say something. Sorry, some Southie done that came out there.
I didn't say anything.
Sometimes South, you think it's crucified, but it just comes back. It's just like on Twitter, you can say something absolutely wrong. I mean, rank. I mean, I saw yesterday someone saying like, every enemy in your life will die, something like that. And I was thinking, well, Jesus says pray for your enemies. But either way, that will get thousands of retweets, and suddenly it's correct. Yeah. So for that reason, when you're young, and I've seen it, when you're young, you see a pastor who's literally spent years, decades learning something. People are like, yeah, so I there's no great respect for him. He knows as much as I do. On Twitter, we're both the same. In fact, some congregation members of churches have way more followers than the pastor. You know, you can be young and have a following of 100,000 and your pastor's there preaching to 12 people.
Yeah.
So you're like, if anything, I'm reaching more people. My ministry has greater impact than his one. So why would I respect him and give him high respect?
I think there's a lot of familiarity in the church today. But I don't know, like what I'm about to say, I don't know whose fault is. I don't know if you can blame anyone. But I think in a quest where pastors have tried to become a lot more relatable, or there's a lot of young pastors, a lot of people are seeing their pastors as big bro or like friends, and in that subconsciously you lose, like, because the gap is closed, you lose that sense of high respect, that sense of honor, and it's now like, oh, you treat your pastor how you would treat your friend or how you treat your brother, and that causes, or that presents itself in a lack of honor. Like, there is a lack of high respect. So I do agree, but I just don't know. Like, if you were to ask me whose fault is it, I wouldn't be able to tell you. I don't know where it's come from, or how it's come, and how do we even change it? Like, how do we now go back to a place of giving high respect to our leaders?
I think part of it, maybe I'm thinking too deeply about it, but I think part of it is like a submission issue. You know,
come on,
this person is the one who is overseeing over me. This person is the one who gives an account for me, and they have that authority over me from God. And so as a result, I'm then going to honor them and respect them as such. And as Elijah said, that will also be shown in the actions. So are you praying for them? Are you committed to the church when they call for people to come for prayer meeting or whatever? And I just think it's I think throughout society, it's that thing of failing to submit to authority. And so that's part of what I think is the problem.
I don't want to take it too left, but even off that, I think it also goes to this idea of, I feel like nowadays anyway, we take this idea that our relationships with Christ are individual. Yes, they are, but I think we've taken it to a point where it's like, what God tells me that he doesn't have to tell anybody else, and because of that, I'm always right. Yeah. Or everything I hear or I think I hear is of God, and that is the truth. So even if, like, I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised to hear someone go into their pastor with a revelation that they've received. Their pastor saying, I'm not too sure. They're going to go home and say, no, but that's my truth. That's what God revealed to me. And then that, again, you then lose respect for your pastor. When you believe your pastors, not that we should never believe that our pastors can't be wrong. But if it's a thing where everything your pastor is saying, you're now saying, I disagree, this is what God revealed to me, well, obviously, like, if your pastor speaks, go and match it up with what it's saying in the Bible, and if it's there, then you know, like, this has scriptural backing. But, like, if everything your pastor is saying, or every time you go to your pastor, you're saying, like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, the idea that I don't have to listen to him, like, I can do this myself, like, of course, the respect dies again. So it's that idea of going back and understanding the structure of church, like, this person is over you for a reason. Like, obviously people call themselves, but if you're going to a place where this person has honestly been called by God to be a leader, you have to respect that.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at society as a whole, we can see that, you know, just people just don't like authority. There's this wave of kind of like anti-establishment. It's, you know, and that seeps its way into its church. And again, something you said about, you know, this kind of like personal relationship with God. So, you know, if I'm a Christian, it's just me and God. But the whole point of the church is, you know, as a collective, as one body. And I think that, so simply because that seeped into the church, that's why you've seen a lot of people, you know, kind of like leaving churches, but then not leaving churches, you know, to go and spend some time with God, you know, and perhaps find out why that church and was it the place for them, you know, and try to look for, you know, for new place to kind of you know, be plugged into. They're just like, yeah, just me and God, and
Everybody
that's
wants
it.
to be their own leader.
No accountability, you know,
Yeah.
you know, nothing like that. Just me and God.
I agree. I'm trying to think of how I would put it because, you know, when people talk about like not having sex before marriage, they say what you're doing is you're taking one of the fruits of marriage without the commitment. And I think with churches too, people want one of the fruit of, you know, being an active Christian, which is wisdom, knowledge, all that kind of stuff, but without the commitment of being part of an active community, serving in that community. Everyone just wants to kind of take I think the word you use is revelation, share it on Twitter or Instagram, whatever it is, amass followers, but not be actually part of a thriving, beating community. And
No, but it's true because like some people's only ministry is their following on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's their ministry. Like that. The minute they hear something or they watch something, they run to Twitter. They
Tweet it.
I would even say they, but I would say we. I think it's something we all do, like without, because you're right. It as a guy, anyways. Every guy was, I don't have authority issues, right, whatever. But it is odd submitting yourself, quote unquote, to another man, because in your head, you're like, well, he has one head, I have one head. Like, what does he know that I don't know, type of thing, right? Now, even though you might have buried that part of you, I do think it creeps up sometimes where you'd rather be free. We all want freedom, don't we, quote unquote. But when we realize that it's actually for our good, that God puts people that can see things from a different vantage point in our lives for our good, then that makes it a bit easier. And I will say, generally speaking, that lack of high respect for people in your life, and if we just move away from pastors for a minute, but just even just like aunties in your church or mentors, and just people who you just look up to, right? It shook me quite a bit yesterday when we were talking about something. We had so many deep chats yesterday, didn't we? But but I was thinking about it this morning. Like in the morning, I was like, what was it we said? We were speaking about something about how, oh gosh, no, it's happening when you just forget what you're about to say. No, I think it was George that said it. This idea that that's it. We're speaking about how like it's really hard to have heroes in the current culture we live in, because the idea of heroes have been so polluted that like we're so overly cynical. So if someone tells you, I look up to this guy, you're like, oh, but did you know they're fake, they're fraud, and you're like, why do we have this culture of just destroying everything? And every pastor's probably really fake, every leader's probably really doing something behind the scenes, you know, and we have that like really high moral bar, this moral purity test that we make so high so that no one can pass it. And what it does in our life is it gives us a life where we have nothing to look up to, no one to, so we just end up living. It was a book, I think it was C.S. Lewis that said it, about people who are cynical claim that they can see through people. But the issue of seeing through everything is that you live in the transparent world where nothing is anything anymore, right? And your life becomes really meaningless because, quite frankly, there's no one to look up to, there's no one to lean on, because you see through everything. Everything's transparent, right? And that's a really big issue I think our generation has to wrestle with, because we have the means for connection, we have the means for all these different things, but we don't want to. And for that reason, most guys I speak to, me for the first time, have no structure in their life as to here's who I look up to, here's who mentors me, here's who I mentor. It's just free for all. Whatever I want, I do. Whenever I want to do it, I do it. And my mum and dad are too busy working to care, so I just do whatever I want. So that got too deep. I'm sorry.
I think like this topic, it branches into so many
other avenues.
So it's a big one. It's a very big one.
But yeah, just going to your point. Earlier on we talked about high respect. So this is a bit of a tangent, but my mum, like, you know, well, pretty often she makes food not for the whole church, but for certain departments of the church. and one of the departments that she makes it for is the finance department. And I used to be like, Mum, what are you doing? Waste of resources. I'd rather have this in my belly than it, you know, going to these man. And I was thinking to myself, just like they're finance guys, like what they did. And then it wasn't until later on where I was in church for something else. and I think it was a meeting for my department, and then we stayed back. All the youth, we stayed back. We played instruments and just like messed around. And then those guys were still up there. It's about 8-9 p.m.
How much money is your church getting through? I mean,
I was like,
the offering in your church must be. How are people doing finance till 9 p.m. on a Sunday?
I was like, what? I was like, huh?
It's time to come to your church, mate.
I don't think so.
But think about it, if you're doing finance till 9, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
It's counting a lot of offering there.
And the things that like, especially when we've got things like conferences, they could be there till much later. And it wasn't until I understood that so that's the reason why that's gonna happen. And my mum, she also made a point where I don't know why, but I don't want to say our generation, but people like me, we tend to always want to ask questions as why. So giving them this food, why? And I think that this kind of like constant questioning, it doesn't allow us to actually have high respect for anybody who should have it, because we always want to make them earn it nearly.
Why do they deserve it?
Why they deserve it. And the things that sometimes we just don't have to deserve it, you just need to honor people. And I think that the quicker we understand that, the quicker that we can actually start to, have high respect for people who just everybody, to be honest, because that's what we're supposed to do. So yeah.
But see, like, even
That's
going
good.
back to your early points about honouring through actions more than through like titles and words. Obviously, we know that actions are a very big thing. So if we're honouring people through our actions, why is there a need for titles in not even just in church, but in life? Like, what is the need for titles? Why do we call our teachers Mr. and Mrs.? Why do we call our doctors Doctor? Like, if we're to honour through actions, why do we need titles?
Well, I think for the most part, just a quick answer to that is, when you're young, it can be hard to understand some of the things that, like Elijah said about honoring through actions. So you just have, when a child's like young and he's building his schematic knowledge at the very earliest age, you just try and teach him things through as many reference points as possible. So titles are one reference point. Behaviors never. There's lots of reference points. I don't think Elijah's saying, you can obviously correct me if you're wrong, that we need a totally, titleless society, cashless, everything's less society, cashless society, it's not that. It's just we need to not value one reference point too much. We just need to use as many as we possibly can.
I get that.
Which actually brings us up to like the rap, if you like, which is obviously rappers and wrap up. I'm not gonna rap.
Okay,
If I was gonna be like, and that's why we need an honor because we were born in. No, not quite. Because the way your eyes went up, like you don't rap. This is a new segment. Yeah, every episode, one of us will do a spoken word
as well.
piece. Can you beatbox?
No, I can't. Come on, Shumi. A little 4-bar.
Right, let's not do this.
Right.
I bet folks are like, what is going on in that room right now? Well, as we wrap,
As we wrap up, I need to put it up.
Up there.
As we wrap up, what would you guys? Because I think someone's said it already about the actions, but like, not everyone has to do this as well. Just if you feel, I was about to say led, but I'm so Christian in it. If you feel led, but yeah, like, how do you do it in your life in terms of your heroes, your people you look up to? How do you have heroes in a climate that it seems like you can't have any heroes, but also how do you ensure you're honoring them, but not venturing into this kind of unhealthy territory, if you like, where you're giving them your thinking job. Again, they can think for me, they can make decisions for me. I'm just going to be passive.
Well, for me, thinking in a church context, it's for me to understand that this is who God has placed over me, what they are to do in that, but also then knowing that this person's example is ultimately meant to lead me to Christ. I think of 1 Corinthians 11:1, Paul saying, imitate me as I imitate Christ, so their footsteps are supposed to point toward him in the end. And knowing also that they're not going to be completely perfect, of course not, because they're a man, but I'll still honor you in the capacity that you have over me, the role that you have, and respect you. And that goes for my heroes outside of the church as well. You're not going to be completely perfect, but I'll still take that which is admirable from you, that I can learn from, and run with it. So that's how I do it.
That's good. Strong.
I thought we're in a circle.
Okay, cool. So with me, in terms of how I do it, I think I like titles because
Doctor, Reverend,
Apostle.
I think
Apostle
titles
Raphael,
for me were kind of
Super Bishop Raphael. Just waving your hat. Hello, everybody. Hello.
You want to get pastor come to your church?
See that gift? The gift of the when they're reading out your title, you're just
waiting.
With two bouncing baby boys.
Single-handedly saved the whole of Ghana. You're just like, yeah.
Wow. Yep, that was me.
Yeah, they always say, yeah, he's blessed with two boys. One is a doctor, the other one is a... Sorry, carry on. We're getting so carried away.
I like titles because for me, they like kind of remind me, they're that physical reminder that this person is, in my life anyway, I hold them to a higher regard. So, like my pastor, I legit, not that he's more closer to God than me or he's better than me in God's eyes, but there's space between us. Like I look up to him. Do you know what I'm saying? And then with that, I now know. Okay, so even as I'm saying his name, Pastor Yemi, I see him as he's above me. That now allows me to remember that. Okay, I'm called to honor this man, to respect him in everything that I do, and how I reference him, and how I speak to him, how I not imitate him in terms of becoming like Christ, imitate him in terms of becoming like Christ. So that for me is how I try and make sure I am honoring all those above me in church and again outside of church as well.
That's good.
I'll say for me, it's kind of like a pseudo.
Wow.
Wow.
Give me a second.
I think you just really went to say pseudo.
Nigeria
So
still,
you didn't think about the word after.
Nigeria still wallow.
Brigandish.
Of the bluest tire. Epileptic nepotism.
Oh gosh.
Parapoism.
That is actually so funny.
But,
Sorry, go
it's
on.
a structural thing. That's it. Pseudo structural. It's weird. It makes sense in my head.
Economies of scale.
Political sink in the swagger.
Oh god. Okay, we actually.
I hope I haven't forgot what I wanted to say.
You were saying pseudo structure.
Yeah, pseudo structure. Yeah,
Pseudo-structure.
Yeah, pseudo structure.
You can see
Yeah.
that.
So inside and outside the church. So inside and outside the church, I try to see people as the best versions of themselves, but at the same time, we also know that people are human. They're bound to make mistakes and bound to have questions. So when I kind of like break people down like that, I'm able to honor them because again, if they do anything that I think is wrong or whatever, it's not going to tear down the image that I have of them. But what it will do, it will encourage conversations. It will encourage questions, and it will come out of a place of respect and wanting to learn and wanting to grow inside the church and outside the church. So that's how I'm able to kind of like honor people, because as soon as I have this bad image of you in my head, and I know what I'm like, it's going to take a lot more to actually convince me to actually hold you to a high regard again. So rather than seeing people as good or as bad, everyone's good. But they tend to make mistakes. Not like that.
And the American gospel popped up.
Did you say good?
You guys know what I mean. Don't take it out of context, please. But yeah, that's so yeah. When I've got that kind of like image in my head, and that's how I'm able to do that.
I think
honoring people becomes easier.
Just a quick thing that popped in as Elijah was speaking was that it also helps to not put people on such a high pedestal because, like we said, everyone is human. They're bound to make mistakes. They're going to make mistakes. Ultimately, we are all sinners. So, but when you place them on
Your hyper grace people will disagree with that, but anyway.
well, that's between them and Jesus. But when you put people on, what's the English? Too much of a high pedestal? Or,
Yeah, it's just a high pedestal.
Yeah, when you put people on a high pedestal,
It's already quite high.
But not too much.
Really, really high. Not too high, but it's
when you
quite,
put
it's
them on
quite high.
a high pedestal, the minute they do something that is wrong or you don't like, the drop is immense. And like you said, that respecting them becomes such a task. But when you understand that, okay, this is a human who's been placed in a position of power or high regard, they make mistake. You're reminded, like, oh yeah, but they are human. Like that doesn't mean now they should now go and kill somebody. You know, say it's my pastor. It's okay. It's okay. No one is saying that, but
Bit extreme.
but like I just remembering that people are human.
There's a good book called Seven Men by Eric Metaxas
Seven Men?
where he speaks about.
Were you looking at it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's up there somewhere on the bookshelf.
I've tried to borrow it, but Mike wouldn't let me.
Yeah, because you don't borrow things, do you? You take them
What, I
and
take
you
them?
never bring them back. But in the book, he makes a really poignant point, anyways, that I think is probably something that I don't think we've said so far, which is helpful. I mean, he talks about it for a few pages, but I won't go on. He basically talks about how this cultural shift from, our parents were quiet, subservient to the state. They kind of did what the state said, and just throughout history, as it were, people just kind of like, you just listen to the people in power. You trust the government, whatever they say, you just shut up and you do it, kind of thing. And obviously, we've had lots of revolutions, not least, us breaking away from the empire, but also even in developed countries, revolutions, whether it's the industrial workers' revolution, women's rights, suffragettes. There's been so much done to undo what was, quite frankly, illegitimate authority. The point he makes in the book is it's gone too far. Whereas rather than questioning the legitimacy of authority, people question the idea of authority in and of itself. So we've gone from a place of foolishly accepting all authority to foolishly debunking all authority. But the truth is, there are some legitimate authority sources in our lives. So what we've got to do is do more to discover the happy medium, where we are questioning whether someone ought to have the position they have in your life. But when you question it, you actually resolve and go, yes, they are meant to have it. Rather than nobody deserves authority over me. Everyone's wrong. Everyone's, that kind of foolish cynic thing. But the other side is bad as well, where it's just that everyone's daddy. Your issue is calling everyone daddy, as it were. So that's one thing I'm always trying to work out is, well, who should have authority in my life? And not using the old metric I used to use, which was, a big African man that speaks deep, and that's the guy. It's like, no, anyone. I can look up to someone who's literally a few months ahead of me, but they have such a character that I'm like, yeah, I need to be around you, kind of thing. So, all in all, I think there's enough advice there in everything we've said for someone to take and see how it will help their lives. It is obviously a funny topic because they're talking about daddy and stuff like that, but I think it is deeper, that if we can get this honor thing right, it can really help our lives be more eudaimonious. So I was about to say an Aristotelian term. You've got me going, eudaimonious. Wallows. Right, that's it. That's it, guys. Thank you for listening. Do subscribe if you haven't done so, and we'll see you on the next one. I need to say this. Wallows. I gotta help myself.